John Flynn, too.
Okay, we'll call to order this meeting of the Board of Selectmen for September 2nd, and we're starting tonight an executive session. So I will move that we enter executive session to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, 0 Central Avenue, believing that having this discussion in open session would have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the body, and to return to open session.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Okay, we're now in executive session, and we will eventually return to open session. Okay, we're back in open session, and thank you to the viewers for waiting and the people who are here in the room for waiting. We started at 7 o'clock tonight because we changed the time of our meetings from 6:30 until 7 starting this month going forward. So we'll be meeting, unless there's an unusual circumstance, at 7 o'clock for future meetings. We're now back in open session, and we have approval of meeting minutes for August 12th.
Move approval of the Selectmen's minutes for August 12, 2014. Second.
Any discussion, changes? Then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of current payroll and vendor warrants.
Move approval of current payroll and vendor warrants.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Citizens speak. Do we have anyone here tonight who would like to address the board at Citizen Speak? No? Then seeing none, we will go on to a continued Chapter 139 public hearing for 131 Elliott Street. So we'll open the continued hearing. This is a hearing that we began several months ago, and back on May 20th, at the time that we entered into a demolition agreement with Carrick Realty Trust, which owns 131 Elliott Street, we continued this hearing. So this is the date that we picked back in May. And I think the recommendation to the board would be to continue it for another 30 days. We still have an agreement that's in effect and that we're all working towards.
Right, I'd be in favor of that, yeah.
So I'll move that we continue the Chapter 139 public hearing on 131 Elliott Street for an additional 30 days.
Second the motion.
Okay, and I just asked, does anyone from the public here wish to speak to the motion since it is a public hearing? And then seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. The next item on our agenda is 0 Central Avenue, and as people know by now, this is the town-owned portion of the Henry's building. We had a lengthy executive session tonight. There's nothing that we have to report on the record in open session now, other than that we have reached out, as we've said in previous meetings, to the owner of 131 Elliott Street, and we have had some discussions. So there's nothing that I can report at this stage or that the board can report at this time. We did have a demolition bid that was submitted on August 7th, so we are coming up on 30 days. Next, I guess Sunday would be the 30 days. So we will need to act on that because it needs to be acted on within 30 days.
Right. And I think at this point it's unclear as to where we're going with that bid, so I think it's in our best interest. Otherwise, it will just expire. So to allow the building commissioner to seek a 30-day extension on that bid. So I'll move that the building commissioner be authorized to speak with the bidder.
Okay. Joe Prontek is our building commissioner. He's here in the room tonight. Do we have a second?
Extend it for what, Tom?
30 days.
Yeah, second.
Any discussion? Then all in favor?
Right.
Aye. Unanimous. Okay, and Joe, you'll report back to us as to once you've had a chance to contact the bidder. Okay, the next item is a written order for disposition of a parcel. This is the unknown owner parcel that's located between 131 Elliott Street and 0 Central Avenue. 2 meetings ago, I believe it was, we had a hearing on this to issue it was a 139 proceeding, and notice had been posted on the building and in the newspaper. We met with Attorney Brandon Moss to go over the issue, and Building Commissioner Joe Prontek gave some evidence at that regarding the condition of the building. So we've now received a written order from Town Council requesting that we act on this tonight.
Madam Chairperson, I think it might be helpful if you explain what 139 is, Chapter 139. Some people I met are not familiar with that.
Well, it was a proceeding that we had to determine whether the building is a nuisance or I believe the word is maybe public hazard. And the evidence that we had from Mr. Prondak is summarized in this written order, paragraphs 1 through 4, where he talked about the substantial collapse due to the exposure to the elements and the lack of maintenance on the building, the floors that have collapsed onto each other. As number 4 says, the building commission has opined that said surrounding walls are in danger of further collapse and portions of the building are in jeopardy of sustaining substantial damage. So this is really a determination. It says pursuant to Chapter 139, the board hereby orders that the building is adjudged a nuisance to the neighborhood and is dangerous for the reasons set forth above, which is a summary of the building commissioner's testimony. So it's an order for the unknown owner of the building to remove the dangerous condition, so to speak. And again, this, I believe, the town administrator can correct me if I'm wrong, this will be published in the newspaper and on the building as well as the notice of the hearing,
Right.
just as that was. So that's really what this is doing, is allowing us to declare this building a danger.
Do we need a motion authorizing this, or is it just going to
Well,
happen?
we voted,
Yeah,
we voted to make the findings at the last meeting. I think we probably want a motion to approve, let me just pull it back up again, approve the written order.
All right, I'll move to approve the draft document prepared by Brendan Moss for the demolition of 131 Elliott Street as written.
But it's not 131 Elliott, it's the,
Oh, I'm sorry.
it's the parcel between Zero Central and
Central
131.
131 Elliott.
Second.
Any discussion? Then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, unanimous. Okay, moving on to number 10 is a discussion of the Swift Hat House. Thank you, Joe. So I wanted to, I guess I should report on behalf of the board, and then we can have a discussion about it. It was last week, it was the 26th, we went on a site walk of not only the Swift Hat House, but we started with the Milton Yacht Club building, which is a town-owned building, and it's leased and has been leased to the yacht club for quite a number of decades, I think about 100 years. Actually, it was a well-attended site walk. We had representatives, not only of our board, but the park commissioners, because this is parkland, most of it. The historical commission representatives were there. A lot of residents were there. So there was a lot of interest, confining our remarks tonight really to the Swift Hat building. There was a lot of interest in trying to preserve that building if we can. And this really started out, I think probably even going back a couple of years with the historical commission, where they've been trying to drum up support for this and meeting with the park commissioners, meeting with others to get public interest and enthusiasm generated to save the Swift Hat building if it's at all possible. It is privately owned, so for people watching this, it's owned by Michael Roberts, who is a developer and who has somewhat recently, I guess several months ago, expressed an interest in donating the building to the town, but it would have to be moved onto land that's currently parkland. And I think there was a lot of enthusiasm from our board that was generated by that sidewalk and the discussions we had with the developer and with others while we were on the walk.
It's a great building, it really is. It's in better shape than I thought originally it was. It's very cut up right now, and
Yeah.
but it's a classic architectural design, and it's certainly worth saving.
I mean, the exterior doesn't do it justice. I have bought and repaired buildings 10 times worse on the inside, so it's definitely salvageable and deserves to be remodeled and saved. Maybe moved, remodeled, and saved.
All right, so the idea would be to move it about 100 yards, if even that, onto the site of where the Suffolk Resolves House originally sat. Is that?
So we're told, yes.
Close to it, yeah.
Yeah. And that's a proposal from the developer. But so since our walk just a week ago tonight, I had a few conversations that I just want to report back to the board on. I talked with Stephen Affinata, who's the chair of the Board of Park Commissioners, also with Steve O'Donnell of the Historical Commission, with Bill Clark, who's here, and with Town Council. And I think there is interest in seeing what can be done. The problem is there's a lot of different moving pieces here, and there's a lot of issues that we need to work out. The park commissioners, it is parkland, and the park commissioners really don't have a use themselves for the property, but they're willing to work with us as a Board of Selectmen to explore what some options might be, which could potentially be transferring the land from the park commissioners to the Board of Selectmen. That itself involves a lot of issues that we need to work out because it is parkland. The Historical Commission, they're obviously very interested in preserving this. They think it would go a long way to revitalize the whole Wharf Street area, which has been an interest in the last dozen years. Just looking back at the 2002 RFP, when the Yacht Club was put out for RFP back at that time, there was a lot of, at that time the Hood building had burned down, the condos had not yet been constructed, but were to be constructed, and there was a lot of sentiment on a prior Board of Selectmen that this is an area that's probably underutilized, might have some further revitalization. So I think the Historical Commission recognizes that, and from what I understood from Steve O'Donnell, that obviously there'd be a cost in rehabbing this building. It potentially could be significant costs. And that's not something that the town has the funding for, but maybe there's a way through private donations and through grants that we might be able to come up with a plan to try to preserve it. So to that end, Bill Clark has been doing some work looking at some legal issues with town council and some historical town meeting articles. Town council has drafted 2 articles for the fall town meeting for us that is for number 11 on our agenda, to reopen and close the warrant. They've just been drafted. They need to be reviewed by the park commissioners. They need to be reviewed by us, obviously, and by probably other people who are involved before the warrant committee really starts an in-depth discussion on it, because they may need to be revised. So we have a lot of moving pieces. The condition of the building, I think we probably want to have Joe Prondak and Bill Ritchie and maybe a renovation expert come in and look at the building. We need to really pin down with Michael Roberts what his offer is, what the terms would be, what his proposal is to do, because he's interested in developing the lot that it's currently sitting on. And then there's a question, what could the building be used for? And we know that there's a few different proposals that have already been brought to our attention, including maybe some kind of a cafe. Maybe the high school crew team might have some potential use for it. Some people have suggested a tourism office. It probably would need to be something that would generate a little bit of revenue in order to really do anything. But those are the types of issues that we need to think about. And obviously, if the town were to acquire the building, it would be subject to the bid process, and we'd have to have an RFP for what the use of it would be. So what I would suggest to the board and up for discussion is that the town administrator and I meet with Michael Roberts, the owner, and with Bill Clark, and I think Alex Whiteside, the chair of the planning board, because it's all going to be tied in with what can be done with the current property that it's on, which is in a business district, and the park commissioner chair, and probably the historical commission's chair as well, since all of them have, the parks in particular, have a big role to play in this. And then have the owner, so to do some initial due diligence, and then have the owner come in and meet with the full board so that we can make
Yeah, that's a good
some
point.
decisions.
I haven't really, Article 97 is obviously an issue,
Yes.
but once you move it around the corner is, right now, well, it's parkland, but what is the zoning otherwise? It's not commercially zoned once it goes around the corner there, or is it? So
I
would
looked
it
at
need
the
a
file on this,
variance,
and I think it's parkland, but it was zoned for commercial use, because it was a commercial area at one time.
Okay.
But those are all issues that we need to confirm, really. It's kind of preliminary to get into too much detail, but
Right.
that was in
But
our
otherwise,
RFP.
we need a variance
Yeah.
to allow it to be commercial.
Well, that's the thing. There's a lot of moving pieces here. So, and I think even if we're able to really have a meeting with the owner and some of the other interested parties and boards and see if we can get everybody on the same page and flesh out some of these issues, then have the developer come in to meet with us. Probably at some point we can appoint a committee that probably would include some representatives of boards, because I think this is the type of a committee where you want elected officials, because there are different boards that have interests in this project. You'd want to have the committee have some elected officials on it who represent different interests in different boards.
Mm-hmm.
And we could probably consider at a future meeting appointing a committee to work on future use, different ideas, different strategies, legal, financial.
I guess the other concern too, and maybe that's the first thing we should find out is, right now, Mr. Roberts can tear that building down if he wants to. He's had the cooling off period.
Yes.
More so than that period of time. How imminent, how soon does he want to move on this thing? I mean, we all agree that it's worth saving, but what is his timeline? And we need to, we all believe this is Article 97 property, so we need to know what the rest of that procedure is in terms of,
Yep.
and figure out a way to make that happen sooner rather than later.
Well, and that's why we've got these articles submitted for tonight.
Right.
So that they'd go to the fall town meeting rather than the next
Spring,
town
yeah.
meeting next May. Because you're right, Tom, that he has gone through that demolition waiting period. And the building, there is a demolition permit that's been issued, so
Right, so
it's
he's not-
really
he's not going to wait
because...
forever.
No, and I talked with him about that about a month ago, and at the time he was looking at trying to get a real handle on where the town would be at by the fall, which is why we wanted to do the sidewalk in August and get that in. So, but again, these articles are initial drafts of articles, and they need to be reviewed by various boards, and there may be some changes that we need to make to them. It's probably, the warrant's going to the printer mid-September, I think, Paula. So we need to, it may be that we need to have them submitted to meet the printer deadline, but it may be that the discussion at the warrant committee really needs to happen after the printer deadline happens in October, once we are able to pin down more of the details.
And I guess my other question, because I'm not sure either one of these articles deal with Article 97 itself. And
Well-
do we know,
So,
I mean, one of them deals with just turning over care custody to the selectmen, and the other one deals with accepting the property as a gift.
yeah, I went through these with town council on Friday.
So is there any specific Article 97 language that we need?
Well, there was language that was in the draft that I got today, which is a little different than what's here, but it does, the article would include to authorize the Board of Selectmen to obtain any court approval, legislative approval, agency approval, or other approval necessary to accomplish the purposes set forth in this article.
So that's the Article 97 language
It doesn't
as far as
mention
we
Article
know?
97, but it just includes that and anything else that might need to be required. But
Okay.
that's really going to need to get spelled out as the process goes on.
And this would be a two-thirds vote.
I think so, but that's why I'm suggesting that we try to have a small group meeting with the developer, with the town planning director, with the town administrator, to try to make sure we pin down what the realm of issues are that are out there.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I think what we've got right now is enthusiasm and interest, but there's so many different aspects,
parts.
including potentially significant financial cost to doing anything with the building, that we need. Submitting the articles would allow us now to have the discussion in October rather than May, but there's a lot we need to pin down before October.
Yep.
And it could be that we wind up pulling articles, or they get substantially changed in the recommendation process. Well, I guess not substantially changed, because then there'd be a scope
scope,
question.
okay.
But even as the articles themselves might have to be revised a bit by town council. So does that process, is that agreeable to the board? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Any other discussion on Swift Hat Building? Then why don't we move on to number 11, which is to reopen and close the October 27th special town meeting warrant to add 2 articles.
I'll move to reopen the October 27, 2014 special town meeting warrant and add articles,
I think they're 18 and 19, Paula? We have 17, right? Are they 18 and 19?
okay, articles 18 and 19. Let me get back to the, okay, yeah. Should we actually read the language in the
The
articles?
motion's right there.
Okay. All right. To reopen the fall, 2014 Fall Town Meeting to consider whether to include 2 additional articles of the warrant. Number 1, an article to transfer from the Board of Park Commissioners to the Board of Selectmen for general municipal purpose care, custody, management, and control of a portion of property located on the easterly side of Wharf Street at Adams Street, which property is shown on the Town of Milton Assessor's maps as Section F, Block 11, Lot 1, and 2, an article to authorize the Board of Selectmen to accept a gift of the Swift Hat Building, so-called, located at 98 Adams Street, contingent upon the donor, at no expense to the Town of Milton, transporting such building and installing it on town-owned property located on the easterly side of Wharf Street at Adams Street, which property is shown on the Town of Milton Assessors maps as Section F, Block 11, Lot 1, and to close the warrant.
Second?
Discussion, just the language that I just read earlier about
It's
the approval
different.
is not
Yeah,
in here,
I
so
know.
I think this might be an earlier draft of it, but obviously we'll get the right version of it to the warrant committee and for consider. And I just want to reiterate, especially to people watching from home, the Board of Park Commissioners is currently in control of this land, and they have not met, they have not had a vote. A couple of them were at the site walk. They've expressed a willingness to work with us, but you know, it's obviously they're going to play a big role in this, and it would be subject to their review and vote as well. So just so that we're clear on that, that we'll be working cooperatively with the park commissioners to see if there is something that we can do here.
Mm-hmm.
If no other discussion, then all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We will contact the warrant committee chairman and let him know there's 2 more articles. Moving on to number 12, the appointment of various elections officials. This is a lengthy motion with a lot of names.
You can just vote it as presented.
Want me to do it, or you want to do
I
it?
don't care. I'll make a motion to appoint the following residents to the position of election official to serve until August 2015. Margaret Adams, Bridget Bowen, Lois Brown, Jean Callahan, Ruth Carrington, Ann Clark, Joanne Daly, Agnes Dillon, Jean Donahue, Arthur Doyle, Alice Duzanne, Stanley Dworkin, William Edwards, June Elam, Emmanuel Feeney, Patricia Fisher, John Fleming, Jr., Kenneth Foster, Josephine Grant, Carol Hanfeld, Richard Harrington, Carol Cavey, Arlene Kelly, Paul Kelly, Regina Kennedy, Grace Locker, William Lovett, Barbara Mahoney, Harriet Manning, Mary Martin, Richard Martin, Emily Martin, Virginia Mayhew, Eleanor McDonough, Joseph McGovern, Irene McGrath, Francis McInnes, Enid McNeil, Alice Mercer, John Monaghan, Rosemary Morgan, Jean Mullen, Anne Murphy, Joseph Murphy, William Neville, Eileen O'Mara, Ellen Pierce, Carol Queenie, Janice Rota, Robert Rota, Susan Shea, Pamela Schrago, Joanne Smigliani, Thomas Smigliani, Kevin Sorgi, Denise Sullivan, Julia Swanson, Paula Sweeney, Eileen Tangney, James Thorne, Dorothy Lorraine Tower, Jane Tufts, Dorothy Wynecombe, Janet Zawatsky, and Philip Zona.
Hold on, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have a couple of Board of Health grant acceptances.
I'll move to accept on behalf of the Board of Health a Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition donation in the amount of $2,000 from the Mark A. Susi Scholarship Fund.
I'll give that a big thumbs up, yes.
Any discussion? Then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mark Susi Foundation is wonderful, and I know his mother pretty well, and they run golf tournaments, and they give back to the community in a big way. So,
Mark was a popular athlete in town
He was,
many
yeah.
years ago, and
yeah.
the scholarship fund does a lot of good work and is very generous.
I'll further move to accept on behalf of the Board of Health a community health grant in the amount of $1,000 from BID Milton Hospital, which will assist the Board of Health with its substance abuse efforts.
Second.
Any discussion? Then all in favor?
Aye.
And I'm going to abstain on that one. Okay, number 14 is a meeting with a department head quarterly report from our planning director, Bill Clark. Good evening again, Bill.
Good evening. Milton's Planning Department assures careful stewardship of the town, i.e. its land, its environment, the water, air, energy, etc., providing guidance and protection to ensure a high quality of life for Milton residents today and into the future. Town planning involves research, analysis, strategic thinking, urban design, public consultation, public recommendations, implementation and management. Development of land in the public interest has an important influence on property values and our AAA bond rating. Our efforts have also contributed to the town's qualification and reputation as an award-winning community repeatedly voted best place to live by experts. We work to help developers navigate the process while adhering to the established policies and laws of the town with an eye towards careful growth, finding innovative solutions while protecting the town, its neighborhoods, and its residents. Some of the things that we've been doing right along have been East Milton parking. Howard Stein Hudson is under contract with the town and the state to complete design engineering and development of construction documents for the project to go out to bid. Howard Stein Hudson and the town have held 2 public hearings to update the community on the project's progress and to explain the eventual goal of parking on the deck, a retooled park on the deck area, and updated signals and crosswalks within the square area. The next step in the process is a 25% submittal to Mass Department of Transportation. The next meeting will be held by Mass Highway. Mass Highway is responsible for the 25% and 75% public hearings. Although we give them space, they run the meeting, they get to take all of the input.
Bill, do you have any sense of when, ballpark, that might occur? Month
These public
or-
hearings are required to be run by Mass Highway. It's part of the state and federal process. We're hoping for a late September submittal by Howard Stein Hudson to Mass Highway. We were hoping to have that meeting take place in September, but I'm not sure if we're shooting for the end of September or sometime in October.
But, okay, but so at least you think it'd be in this calendar year,
Oh,
before
yes.
the winter?
Oh,
Okay.
yes. It's our expectation to have that 25% hearing as soon as possible. There's a several-month review period to what they hear from the public process and the submittal itself. The submittal itself is actually drawings that could be built to, and any changes that we want to see that some abutters or neighbors may want to add to it that Mass Highway feels are, should be in there, would take place at that time. The next set of drawings goes up to 75%. At the 75%, we'll start looking at things, the timing of the lights in certain areas. They'll actually define what the lights will look like. They'll define what the time sequences are. You can build the 75s. And then it's, again, a couple of months review by state and federal highway, the longest being federal highway. We do expect to see construction next construction season. That's what we've been told by Howard Stein Hudson and by MassDOT. That's our goal. Sticking with transportation for a minute, under DCR bike lane, DCR has some money, so they have started doing some of the bikeway that connects the Central Ave bike station to Mattapan Square. At the same time, the Traffic Commission was listening to DCR about how bikes would go from Mattapan Square across Blue Hill Ave, Blue Hill Parkway, that whole area there. So DCR is working on some of these issues. We're working on some of these issues dealing with the bikeway. We should see some of the stuff starting on the Dorchester side this fall. Ours
probably the spring. Beechwood Estates up on Brush Hill Road. Property was registered land, and it required land court approval to subdivide the land. Land court has signed off. The Boyle Estate was a 5+ acre property that is now a 5-house definitive subdivision. It was permitted by the planning board. The project installed sewer from Fairmount Ave to the site. They've done drainage work from the site to Brush Hill Road, and the lot sales started this past summer. I know they've got a couple of frames up, and they're moving ahead. Other house subdivisions. 90 Reedsdale Road, the old Women's Club site. It's now called Mary Webster Lane. It's a private way with 4 houses approved in the subdivision. You've seen the one house on Reedsdale Road. They've been preparing the drainage structures, and they've been preparing the roadway itself to get to the next set of homes.
Is that the model of house for all 4 of them?
That actually
Similar
is,
models?
from what I hear, it's going to be the owner's house. Mr. Morrow's going to move into that one himself. So model or not, it's his house, so.
But I mean, it will be the same design houses for, it's 4 houses, right?
4 houses.
Same design?
That's not the same design,
Basically,
but same basic design, but not the same design.
Okay.
Bill, just on that one, Bill, I'm wondering if it would be possible for you to contact the developer and ask him to give some sort of a timeline to all the abutting neighbors. For some reason, they're calling me. They must know I'm in the construction industry. About the site work. And it's starting at, which they're allowed to start at 7 in the morning. But they don't understand that. That if you could just write out a timeline of when he's going to be, breaking rock or digging holes or whatever at 7 in the morning, that they know in advance, maybe 24 hours.
Okay.
So that they can prepare for him.
All right.
Isn't most of the site work done now?
They're still probably doing sewer and bringing water into the other houses.
They've got, the biggest part is already done, that big drainage structure
Yeah.
down at the very end of the
Right.
road, creating the road itself. They have to put in drainage structures behind all 4 of those houses, and those drainage structures do not attach to the bigger drainage structure out in the front. So there is an awful lot of earth movement that has to,
Still to be done.
yeah, they still have to dig some holes.
Okay.
The rock piece, I can imagine, because it is so close, it is out in the open, there's no trees to block it.
Yep.
I'm sure it's noisy, and it's dusty now.
And it has to be done, and everybody knows that. But if they knew in advance, they could prepare.
Let's see if we can get a time schedule from them.
Something like
And
that.
I have that
Thanks.
down here to ask. Previously, this was an untaxed property. With the new homes, each home should be about anywhere from 7+ range. So it's a nice growth to the tax rate. Milton Hill Apartments. Milton Hill Apartments will be the new portion, 30 new high-end apartments, presently under construction. They're expecting occupancy fall, early winter this year. Construction includes 27 units in the new building that's on the street, 2 units in the yet-to-be refurbished Mrs. Henry House. That's the yellow house that's still there. Historic Commission asked that the house be saved. 1 unit will go into the recently constructed carriage house, which is behind the new building. Per the owner, the interest has been very good. About 1/3 of the units are already spoken for. They have been actively marketing the site, and they've been getting a pretty good turnout. Yulin Rink. Curry College, our rink management officials are preparing to open the rink today. They had their first groups in there 4 o'clock this afternoon. This past summer, the rink issues were a meeting of the Rink Oversight Committee, the rink users meeting to choose the hours for the upcoming season, an annual meeting of the rink operators and other MDC or DCR rinks with DCR officials. That took place August 12th in town, in Boston. This summer also, there was an installation of energy savings products within the rink itself. Are new lights, variable speed drives for some of the pumps, a new heating system control, and there's other water saving devices in the bathrooms and the other fixtures in the rink. The planning director and the assistant town administrator have been preparing a document to obtain a long-term lease, somewhere in the 20 to 25-year lease with DCR. The home program. The home program is, the town is part of a consortium of South Shore towns: Quincy, Braintree, Weymouth, Holbrook, and Milton. And although we look at ways to encourage affordable housing, some of the other issues that we've looked at are regional fair housing. Presently, most towns, not all towns, have a fair housing committee. Milton has a fair housing committee, and it winds up getting the misnomer of affordable housing. Fair housing is not affordable housing. Fair housing is that everybody gets the same opportunity to buy whatever house they want. They don't get pushed in one place, they don't get not shown something because of race, creed, color, whatever. It's everybody gets a fair shot at throughout the town. What these towns together have done is worked with MAPC, which is the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. We received a grant from HUD to create a regional fair housing committee, which will meet quarterly. It will address the same issues. Will work to provide training for real estate people. It will work to work with some of the nonprofits to help people that don't either speak the language, don't have the know-how, that there are things to learn about housing. So it's a public process. Housing production plan. The selectmen and the planning board have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow night where Karen Sonnenberg, our consultant, and I will give a presentation on what we already have for a housing production plan. I know that I gave each one of the members of this board, the planning board, several other committees in town, copies of the draft housing production plan. We did this one in August 2014. I think the last one was June or July of 2013. We have taken and made updates to it. The original one would have been 5 or 6 years ago. We have done a lot of work to it, and hopefully the selectmen and the planning board will acknowledge it and agree that we should sign off on the plan, that we will identify sites for affordable housing, and that we can work on attaining a list for housing production, for affordable housing.
Bill, before you move on, because I was going to bring this up under the chair's report, but let's just cover it now while you're here. So just to reiterate for people who are viewing, it's tomorrow night, 7 o'clock at the Senior Center on Walnut Street. It'll be, our board will be there, the planning board, and members of the public are invited to come and ask questions after hearing the presentation. I'm sure we'll have questions and comments, not only for Bill, but also for Karen Sonnenberg, but any member of the public is welcome to come, ask questions, give comments.
Just for the sake of TV and getting repeats of something, the housing production meeting will be Wednesday, September 3rd, 7 o'clock at the Council on Aging.
Right.
We do want to have as many people come in, make comment, listen to the presentation. If you don't get to go to the hearing, the plan is online on the town's website. If you have comments, make the comments back. My email is right beside the plan itself, so I know that it's been noticed in the newspaper.
Yes.
If you have comments, let's hear what they are.
Yeah, and I think in talking with Emily Ennis, because she and I worked on trying to come up with a list of the town-owned parcels, in talking about tomorrow night's meeting, we thought that, we'll see how timing works out, but that there's probably going to need to be a second meeting between the selectmen and the planning board together to have a follow-up discussion, to go over whatever comes out of tomorrow night's meeting, what the comments might be. Maybe there needs to be further revisions to the draft that are generated because of the discussion. And there, as you mentioned, Tom, at one of our previous meetings, there's a lot of policy in this that we're going to have to commit ourselves to. So it's going to have to be a thorough discussion, probably after tomorrow night's, hopefully very thorough meeting tomorrow night. Thanks, Bill.
Okay. The St. Pius Rectory site. We have an 8-acre site off of Brush Hill Road. It's owned by Northland Properties. The property is across the street from Curry College. It abuts the Hyde Park housing project. So it is a bit of a difficult site to develop. Currently, the site is occupied by an abandoned mansion and a carriage house. The property owner has had multiple meetings with the neighbors and now has a proposal for a zoning change that will allow townhouse construction on the site before the upcoming town meeting. The Northland proposal is for 36 townhouse units, restorations or reuse of the existing 1904 mansion, and a series of private roads internal.
I think this is a good proposal. We're in desperate need of townhomes in Milton. So, and it's
High-end housing here.
And Bill, was it fair to say, I thought at one of the planning board meetings, they mentioned it's targeted. It's not age-restricted, but
It's targeted, so
targeted
it's-
to an older
Yes.
community
Yes,
of residents.
Yeah,
Two bedrooms.
first floor masters and,
Yeah.
yeah.
it's first floor masters,
Yep.
lofts and some, but no, they won't be 2- and 3-story high. They'll be lofts. East Milton Movie Theater building. The Falcone companies now own the property at 556 Adams Street and the 2 houses associated with the building on Church Street. All of the property is zoned business, including the 2 houses on Church Street. The Falcones are currently working with a team of architects along with the structural engineer to plan to rehab the existing facades and the rear brick structure. The future use will be commercial. Construction should be starting this fall, this winter, and the future timelines, other future timelines will depend upon the applied for liquor license and the necessary site plan approval from the planning board. Since I was here last time, in mid-August, the planning department hired its new administrative assistant, Emily Martin. Emily comes to the planning department from the central business. Emily has hit the ground running. She's organizing the department files, the applications, helping me coordinate the multitude of ongoing efforts. The assistant town planner interviews have started, and I'm looking to have that person in place hopefully by the end of September. We did have the first round of interviews last week. We're looking to see if we can schedule them as soon as possible so that we can get somebody by the end of September.
how many applicants did you have?
I want to say we had very high teens. We pushed that down to 6. We wanted to interview 6 people, and of the 6 that we chose, 2 of them had already taken jobs in the last 2 weeks before we did that. So we did 4, and we'll cut that down to
1.
Yep.
Good.
I do have one other thing that came in today, which I like, I'm not sure, and I'll throw it to the board and see if you like it too. I got contacted by a planning professor over at MIT. He's also the dean of planning out at UMass Amherst. He's working with a class at MIT, and he is looking to invite between 20 and 30 planners from Europe and Asia to a town meeting. And he's looking for a town meeting that has zoning articles. So he's looking for Massachusetts-type town meeting, home rule, looking for zoning articles that will be debated by the floor. And since we have so many zoning articles, I thought it was a good idea. I did talk to him. He's excited, and I'd like to see if we can get between 20 and 30 planners from Europe and Asia, sit up in the back and listen to.
That'd be pretty cool.
It is.
And would they then give you feedback and comments?
Absolutely.
Have a follow-up meeting with you?
They will. Professor Mullen is very, very well-known planner. As I said, he was the dean of the planning school out at UMass Amherst. He's now teaching again at UMass Amherst and teaching at MIT. It'd be an interesting take for them because they have nothing like home rule in town meeting. So it'd be an interesting fit.
Yeah, I mean, to a degree, it's kind of unique to this part of the country, really. Right?
Yes.
So presumably, you'd have to give them a crash course before the town meeting.
They'll meet with us probably an hour before town meeting.
all.
I'll meet with them, go over this is how it's going to be. They'll know ahead of time what our articles are, what the process is. Professor Mullen will give them that whole piece. They'll come, they'll meet the planning board, they'll go through, this is what we're doing, this is how it's going to go, and then afterwards they can come and have a follow-up to how did it go? Did it work the same way they thought it should or would, or could they use the same thing at home?
That'd be interesting.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to get their feedback and see
It
what their
is.
comments are afterwards. I guess that might involve some changing of the order of the articles, maybe at town meeting, to make sure that we have zoning articles all together the first night, or something like that. Obviously, that's going to be
They're pretty
figured out
much
later
together.
on. But
Got plenty of time
yeah,
to figure that
there's
out.
time to figure that out. Sounds interesting to me.
Yeah,
Mm.
it depends. I wonder what part of Europe, because if they're,
You know,
British-
One of them is Iceland.
because the British Parliament is kind of like our town meeting, you know, where they can stand up and make comments. And,
They didn't say Britain.
yeah. It'll be interesting either way.
I know there's some China, Japan. I know there's other Asian countries. I know he said Iceland. I know he specifically didn't say Britain.
Sounds interesting.
I'll get you the list.
Thanks, Bill.
Anything else, Bill? Is that it?
That's it.
Okay,
Just
thank
to go
you.
back, Bill, to the skating rink just for a second, because I know the DCR is planning on shortly opening up the pre-qualification process. Could you spend because we did have a meeting with DCR, and we told them we would kind of promote what that process is. And I know that to be pre-qualified, you either have to be the town or a nonprofit, is that correct?
Yes. We were pre-qualified in the first round of getting the 5-year permit.
Right.
So we've been through this process before.
So the pre-qualification is pretty much financial wherewithal to do it and
Yes.
either be a municipality or a nonprofit within the municipality. And then even after that, the town has the right of first refusal to basically trump anybody else's proposal.
Application.
Yeah,
Yes.
application, should we choose to. So that's happening shortly, and we hope that then it'll go forward and this whole 25-year lease thing will come to fruition.
I know that we've been working with Curry to get the, to address the energy issues.
Mhm.
I know we have every year we have a loss. We have an operating loss. I know that every year we send a letter into the DCR commissioner asking for a rate increase. Seeing that the last rate increase was in 2006, we know that we cannot run the rink at a profit or even break even with the rates that we're stuck charging. We know that the rate increase has gone to administration and finance. We know that it is due out of administration and finance sometime early fall this year. Should we get that, we know that our numbers come much closer to a break-even number. We were the ones who were pushing for that. We've asked every single year. We don't always hear back from DCR. We have in the last 2 years. The last 2 years have been to the, 2 years ago, it was a comment that we can't do that. We have to change everything. We can't just change one. And it was a very difficult process. They have taken and addressed the issue. They just didn't get it done before the rinks were open. The issue is handled differently in a multitude of rinks throughout the state that are either in our situation or somehow or another were originally run by DCR, whether they're run by a group or run by another municipality. The rates are all different. Rates are supposed to be the same. We have done everything that our special award permit said we were to do. Where it said that we had to use prevailing wage, we used prevailing wage. Where it said you can only charge so much, we only charged so much. Where it said that we had to give the same hours to a group that had it in 2009, we've done that. We didn't have to do it after the first year, but we have kept to the original posting of who had what for hours. We still go back and make it that Milton Youth Hockey has the most hours. They're the first one to get to pick. They usually, when they get to the table, acquiesce and let Milton High School pick first, which puts Milton Youth Hockey in second. So Milton has all of the hours that they need when they need them. And it's the same hours that they've had since 2009. And if there's a way to take and give them more, we do that. The other youth hockeys get it, and then South Shore Conference. By the time Curry picks, they're picking fourth. So they're, we've put all that into all of the financials that we've done. We put all that into all of the financials of, in the future, how do you break even? And it is allow us to charge more in an hour. Allow us to charge more in an hour, allow us to charge on during public skating, and we can take and make public skating, prime time again. We can give it more than the hour that we give it now. But you can't take 2 hours of prime time with no money and keep doing that. It just,
Right.
The red keeps getting, larger and larger.
Right. And all we're really talking about is a nominal charge for
Yes. We're
anywhere from $3 to $5 for public skate.
Yep.
And we could probably even figure out a way to, for needy families to
We're
work that
looking
in.
we're looking for a method to do that. We've contacted the schools, we've contacted the boosters, how do they do it? And we want to know the same thing.
Right.
If there's a way that they do it that's successful, we want to mimic what they
Emulate.
do.
Yeah. The other thing we've talked about too, in meetings we've had, because some of the user groups have expressed concern that they want some kind of a voice at the oversight meeting, so we had talked more about making that, it is a public meeting anyways, but have a citizen speak, if you will, at those meetings, so that, people from the general public can come up and express their concerns about oversight of the rink to the Board of Overseers. And I think that will help a lot. So there are some changes planned that will give people, I think, a better voice. And we're just going to go from there.
Okay, anything else on any topic that Bill covered tonight? Bill, you have nothing else for us then?
No.
Thank you for
Thanks, Bill.
coming in
Thanks, Bill.
and for giving us that report tonight. Tom, thanks for all your work on, I know you've been working closely with Bill and the town administrator on the Yulin rink. so-
Walter Timothy has been doing yeoman's work on the state side, trying to move this along at the state level. And
Well, you've been doing yeoman's work as well, so we should thank you for that. The next item is an update on the pilot committee. And Dennis, you are our member on the pilot committee.
I am, and we did have some meetings, probably 5 in total, over the summer, and not everybody was able to show up at every meeting because it was the summer. But it is moving forward, and finally there is a presentation that has been finalized by a couple of members on the committee, which they're going to present to the Board of Selectmen in the next month or so, if we can get them here. And then the Board of Selectmen will determine if this will suffice to present it to our nonprofits in town, and we go from there. And basically that's it. By the way, we did have, I forget his last name, Matt was his first name. He is the guy that Mayor Menino appointed from the Board of Assessors in Boston. He gave him the charge of putting the pilot committee together in Boston a number of years ago. And he came out here and he made a presentation to us. And then people were invited from the community as well. Excuse me. And it was very interesting. So we're basically going to model the Boston presentation, or the Boston presentation to the nonprofits. And that's what we'll present to this board in the next month. And that's basically it for now.
Great.
Okay, good. Thank you. We will go on to the town administrator's report. If you have anything, I know Anne Marie's just back from vacation.
No, Madam Chair, do not have any report this evening.
Okay, I figured that was the case. You were on a well-deserved vacation. And the chairman's report, again, I was only going to emphasize the housing production plan meeting tomorrow night. So again, it's September 3rd, 7 o'clock at the Council on Aging, and we encourage as many people to come as possible. We probably should just talk about our future, when our next meeting date is. I guess well, we could do it under future agenda items, but, so while we're on the reports, does anyone else have any item to report? I have nothing else.
To report.
The only thing I do, we've got 2 home rule petitions for liquor licenses out in the Senate, just an update on where those are at right now. Mr. Chan's is the oldest home rule petition out there. That was engrossed by the Senate about 2 weeks ago, approximately, turned over to the House. And again, Walter Timilty has done some yeoman's work again, in about a week and a half has gotten that into 3rd reading. It's been engrossed, and it should be enacted by the House on Thursday, and then it'll go to the Senate to be enacted. So it should be on the governor's desk in short order. The other home rule petition for a liquor license is at the old East Milton Theater. That again has been engrossed by the House about a month ago or so, 2 months ago?
Yes, about a month ago.
Yeah, a month and a half ago, and is now sitting in the Senate. We did contact Senator Joyce's office to see where that stood, and because it really hasn't moved very quickly through the Senate at this point. It's been just kind of lingering a little bit there. So that they are going to contact the Senate President to see what the status of that bill is and try and get it moved along a little quicker.
Okay. Anything else? Any other reports? Then citizen speak response. Do we have anything for previous? I think we've addressed the motorcycle issue before. We've addressed the airplane noise. So then future agenda items.
Can I just say one thing? Because we did get I think we all got the same letter about airplane noise from a woman over in the Hillside area.
Yes.
And I guess just to kind of commiserate, the airplane noise does seem to have gotten, I don't know if it's worse, but it's certainly gotten different. I'm even noticing it.
That's right.
I had a backyard party last week, and more than one person made note of the airplanes that are noticeably low going over my house, which in the past, I've been there for over 30 years and never saw an airplane. So something has changed.
Yeah.
Something has definitely changed.
There are more reports coming in, more complaints from a broader group of people than, it just seems to be growing from different areas of town.
Yeah,
So,
it definitely has.
yeah. So we have a committee appointed. I don't know when, do you know when their first meeting will be?
Yes, I was just going to speak, Madam Chair, that we are reaching out to the committee members and hope to have a meeting scheduled for sometime at the end of September. We're just waiting for Cindy Christensen to be appointed by the Board of Health, which I believe she'll be appointed mid-September, and so we're hoping to have the first meeting the end of September.
Good.
Okay. Probably the sooner the better for that committee.
We're all anxious to get going.
Yes.
All right, then, future agenda items. I know that the town treasurer would like to meet with us at some point later on this month to talk about the investment policies, and might want to bring a consultant in about that. So we should reach out again to the treasurer to try to schedule a date for him to come in and talk about that issue. Anyone else? Any other future agenda items that we need to add to the next
I can think
couple
of.
meeting dates? All right, then speaking of meeting dates, so we need to pick a date for next week. We had scheduled for the 9th, but as we mentioned at the last meeting, that's the state primary election, and the town clerk has told us we cannot meet that night. So the warrant committee would like to meet with some or all of us Monday night, and I guess that's the question. I know I have to go in as chair. Are we all going to go, or?
I've got a master plan committee meeting on the 8th.
Okay. Because
When is it, Dave?
it's the Monday, the 8th at 7:30. It's just a matter of us posting a notice of the board attending it. If we're all going to go, if it's just one of us, then we don't need to. It's not a public meeting for our board, it is for them,
Right.
obviously.
I actually have something on that night as well, so you
Okay.
can just go.
So I'll plan to just go, and they want to just talk about the fall town meeting articles. And obviously, Bill Clark and others will have to come in, Amy,
Yeah.
to talk about different ones. So Monday night is out, Tuesday night is out. If we want to meet the 10th, all of the rooms in this building are booked. We'll have to use probably the Council on Aging or another location. The 11th, the planning board has a meeting, and I think that's their public hearing on the zoning articles, which we may want to go to.
Mhm.
So what about the 10th? Is that,
That's fine, man.
it's just a matter of us finding a location for it, probably the COA.
Council on Aging?
It's our next meeting, right?
Yes. Okay, so Wednesday, the 10th at 7 o'clock, and then the 23rd, I think we had added previously.
Yes.
In the week in between, I know both of you are away for part of that week, so.
Right.
Okay, so the 10th and the 23rd,
Okay.
at 7 for the next 2 dates. Okay, we had an executive session scheduled for the end of this meeting. We're not going to need it, so we're going to, unless,
To adjourn?
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.